Welcome to 805 Sports Talk. I'm Joe Bailey. Alongside me is Kenny Cress, Elliott Stern, and Jacob Rayburn. And once again, we got a great show planned for you guys. It's a little different show. We finally get to talk about some football. It's that time of year where we talk about Little League, and also going to be talking a little bit of Olympic action as we have a local connection who will be trying to qualify for the Olympics this year. But Jacob, I think you have the big story of the week. You got a CIF championship. I think that's your first CIF Southern Section Championship covering for us. You saw Lompoc claim the title. Kind of run us through what your weekend was like seeing that, and kind of take us back through that whole playoff run that the Braves just had.
Yeah, it was remarkable. They went to Deanna Manning Stadium in Irvine, and they beat Louisville High 3-0 to clinch the program's first ever CIF championship. Lompoc softball, just an amazing story. I think kind of hard to grasp until you kind of reflect on it, that this team completed one of the most remarkable sports stories in Lompoc Valley history. That's a way they should look at it. It was that great. They beat 3 straight higher seeded teams to win it, and they shut out each one of them. Silverado 1-0, St. Bonaventure 3-0, Louisville High 3-0. Defending champion St. Bonaventure comes up to Lompoc High, and Lompoc looks the better team, plays like the better team, and then does it again against Louisville High. I think that's one of the more incredible things about this story. They're not the plucky little team that got lucky breaks in every game and got to beat higher seeded teams who got to play lower seeded teams that upset higher seeded teams. That didn't happen. They went the hardest route, and they just played better. They played good ball. And a major shout out to head coach McKenna Martin in her second year leading the program, and a team that was legitimately fun to watch play defense. This is a coaching staff that is, as I kind of joked with Coach Martin, healthy obsession with playing great defense. And they just bought into their style of play, got enough offense to win, and then Olivia Gutierrez would shut things down, and then Cheyenne Marmolejo at catcher, Jocelyn Taylor at third base, Riley Sager at shortstop. Most of the season, Jaden Andrade at second base, and then freshman Michelle Hill in CIF, and then Alana Elizondo at first base, Casey Adkins in left field, Sierra Green in center field, and Alexis Porter in right field. Those were your starters for the entire CIF run, and if I saw them make more than 2 errors, then I don't know when they happened. I think they maybe made 2 or 3 errors combined, all 9 players, the entire CIF run. Just incredibly impressive, and something they should be proud of, something the whole town should be proud of. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more later in this show as we have everyone get a chance to talk about it. But as Joe mentioned, we also have Rio Olympics this summer. That's coming up pretty soon, and there is a local connection that Joe can talk to us about.
Yeah, Josh Prenot is a Orchid kid. He was homeschooled. He really hasn't gotten a lot of publicity over the years as he's been swimming at Cal, but he's really one of the top swimmers, in the nation. He's one of the top breaststrokers. I think he's qualified second for the Olympic trials in the 200 breaststroke. He's top 5 qualifier in the IM, 200 and 400. He has better times than Michael Phelps in certain events. The Olympic trials are at the end of this month in Omaha, so it's really a crucial time to kind of catch up with him and see how Josh is doing. This past weekend, he won twice at in Santa Clara at a pro swim meet, set meet records, which really not that big a deal for a swimmer of his caliber. His time is 5th in the world right now in the breaststroke. So he's really one of the top swimmers, and he's got his sights set on Rio. So it's really a good time to catch up with him. I had a phone conversation with him earlier this week. He's just really focused on training for the trials, which will be June 26th through July 3rd, I believe, in Omaha. So we're definitely going to keep an eye on that and see how he fares up there at the trials, and hopefully he makes the Olympic team. Confident that you've already put in the work and now you just got to execute. What's kind of your mentality at this point whenever you hit the pool?
I mean, the trials meet is a different animal. It is a little bit nerve-wracking. But I mean, honestly, that's the fun part of the sport.
Okay.
Like, training is the hard part. Training is the painful part. Just going out there and testing yourself against the best swimmers in the country, in the world. I mean, that's a joy. That's something I immensely enjoy. So, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous for it, but I'm also really looking forward to it.
What do you expect to happen in the next, 4 months or so with you?
All I really have set in stone right now is the next 3 weeks, and that's from now until when trials end. If I end up making the team, I would probably be the happiest I've ever been. And then it's just going to training camp. I think there's like a 6-day gap between when the meet ends, when trials ends, and when you have to report to training camp.
Okay.
So just kind of enjoying that time. And then you kind of back on the grind of getting ready for Rio. And if I end up not making it, I think I'm probably going to keep training a little bit over the summer. I wanted to do like a backpacking trip with a few buddies. And then, regardless of whether I end up swimming at the Olympics or not, I need to be on point again in the fall because I'm going to be swimming at the World Cup competitions, and you got to be at the top of your game to be competitive in those.
Okay. And you have I think you have the 5th best time in the world in the 200 breasts. Is that right?
Correct.
So how confident are you that you will make the team? What's your confidence level at? And do you think there's anything stopping you from being a part of this Rio team for the U.S.?
American breaststroke got real deep real fast.
Okay.
There are probably 6 people with an equally good shot of making the team in the 200 breast. I'm confident that I'm improving well enough right now where if I make it, I can medal. But making it's going to be really, really tough. That's kind of the perils of swimming for the U.S. is you got to compete against the best in the world just to get on the squad. But it's a huge honor to be a part of the Olympic team.
You're homeschooled over here on the Central Coast. Swim with the Santa Maria Swim Club. Go to Cal, and you've turned out to just have a great career at Cal. And here you are on the verge of qualifying for the Olympics. How do you feel about how the journey and everything that's gone down, and how you kind of made this own journey? How do you feel about everything all the decisions you made going to Cal and all that? How do you think how do you feel about your journey over the last couple of years?
Yeah, the journey has been awesome. I think my time at Santa Maria Swim Club really prepared me well for college athletics. Big credit to Mike Ashmore there. Everything's gone fantastic. I honestly did not expect to really be at this level. It was always kind of a dream, but to be mentioned as like having a legitimate shot at making the Olympic team is really something I never actually thought I'd attain. So it's kind of surreal to go through, but also really cool at the same time. I'm just trying to enjoy every minute of it.
Yeah, so that's our swimming coverage for this week. Kenny's going to fill us in on some Little League action that's coming up. It's a big week for all the Little Leaguers. Kenny, I know you're excited for this time of the year, so can you kind of catch us up to speed on what's going on?
Yes, it is that time of year. By the time this show will have aired, the Santa Maria semifinals will have taken place. The Orchid and Santa Maria Championship games are set for Saturday, with the Orchid game at the Mae Grisham Fields and the Santa Maria game at Santa Maria West Side site, which is Oakley Park. I look forward to this event every year. It's good to see it. Good to see the turnout. There's always a good turnout. Many former Little League players in the Santa Maria Valley come out and support the local teams. It's always good to see them. Last Saturday night, there was the 5th annual FCA All-Star game. It was a defensive-dominated game. San Luis Obispo County edged Santa Barbara County 14-7 in overtime. It was the first time that FCA game had gone to overtime. I think the way it turned out, I think that was a combination of good defense by both teams and both offenses having about a week to install their offenses. As you would guess, somewhat conservative game plans on both sides. And I think that gets us up to speed on what was with FCA football, what is with Little League baseball. And now Elliott is going to catch us up on what was with his time at the rodeo.
Well, the 73rd annual Santa Maria Elks Rodeo is now in the books. It was really exciting. So much was going on, I could take a whole half hour just to talk about that. And in fact, we did take a couple half hours live out from the rodeo grounds. Jason Anderson, Braxton Carroll, who are the men behind these cameras, were out there with me. And Friday night, we were able to do a special half-hour program live from the rodeo, and then again a wrap-up show Sunday night. And it was really a lot of fun, not only to go to the rodeo every year, my 16th year at the Santa Maria Elks Rodeo, but to be able to bring you some of the action live, and for you to get to meet some of the people like Hall of Fame rodeo stock contractor Cotton Rosser, who's just a legendary rodeo guy, and a Cal Poly alumni. He's about 85 years old, and he's the first of 9 family members to graduate from Cal Poly. And last year he got an honorary doctorate from Cal Poly while one of his daughters was getting her master's degree at the same time. So he has strong local connections, and we were able to bring you the kinds of interviews with like Sherry Gibson, who is the official rodeo timer. One of those people you don't notice if her job is being done right, like an umpire or a referee, but she keeps track of those 8-second rides that the rough stock riders do, and the speed events, the steer roping and the tie down roping, and everybody at the rodeo knows her and knows how important she is. But we got the chance to bring her and her story a little bit to you, so that was a lot of fun. And I tell you, they're saying it was the biggest and best ever. Now it started with the mini rodeo, which is always sold out because, well, no tickets are sold. But they do pack the place with 6,500 or so elementary school students who come from all over the Central Coast. And then that was, of course, all the competitors were high school and elementary school children. And I tell you, that those crowds of kids roared louder than any of the adult crowds. They're just so much fun to watch, those kids. And now there are a couple of people that I've gotten to know over the years. Another couple people that you probably don't know their names, but they're the first people you see when you drive into the rodeo grounds, and that's Carmen and Jerry Gunn. And they're in charge of the parking. So if you're coming in to get a place to park there's a good chance that you saw them. And they keep track of this, just like Sherry Gibson keeps track of all the time. The Gunns keep track of all the cars, and they were parking more than 1,500 cars every night. That means there's at least 6,000 people on the rodeo grounds, and the estimates were higher than that, very much in the lines of maybe 7,000, and they were expecting to have more than 30,000 people attend the rodeo, which shows that it's growing by leaps and bounds in the last few years, and they've made it bigger and better. It's not just the rodeo kids, but well, to me they're kids, but young men and women doing the rodeo, but they bring in specialty acts. Justin Rumford is a world champion rodeo clown, has been here a couple of years now, but they had their Flying U rodeo cowboys, and they have a motorcycle daredevil act that the crowd loves, and they had for the first time ever bull jumpers. Now this is reasonably crazy. They had 2 men from France, and Hall of Fame rodeo announcer Bob Tallman kept saying that the unemployment rate must be really high in France for guys to figure out that they can make a living jumping over bulls. And they jump over these mean honorary Spanish bulls, who are a little smaller than the American bulls that the bull riders ride, and they jump over the bulls as the bulls are charging at them. And they touch them like you see in gymnastics when they touch the pommel horse and they're doing those jumps. They just touch them and flip over and do all kinds of crazy things. So it was more than just what was going on in the arena that kept the crowd entertained. And of course they had Cowboys Kicking Cancer and a special tribute to Lexi Brown. And it was really, those were a couple of very emotional and touching events that brought the community together. And there were some fun things too. The saddle bronc riding was won by Ben Londo. Now, maybe you don't know Ben Londo, but if you're at Cal Poly, you do, because he's a graduate of Cal Poly, he's a professor at Cal Poly, and he's the head coach of the Cal Poly rodeo team. And he came down here, and he still actually ropes, he still saddle broncs in the summer when he can get away from Cal Poly for a couple of weeks. And he goes out on the circuit because he's a professional rodeo cowboy, just like the other PRCA guys. And they had some of the best saddle bronc riders in the country were here in Santa Maria, including a bunch of members of the Wright family. Now, the Wright family is legendary in rodeo. There are 7 Wright brothers. 6 of them are out on the rodeo circuit. The 7th one isn't quite there yet because he's not old enough. But they also had 2 of the oldest Wright brothers' sons competing there, and there are several world championships between the brothers, Jesse Wright and Cody Wright, and Ben Londo beat him. So it's just not a monopoly for the Wrights. The barrel racing was won by a young woman from Morro Bay, Katie Pasco, and she's out on the circuit too. And there are all kinds of other local connections. There were more than 30 people with homes from Paso Robles down to San Ynez who were out on that rodeo tour, and they all took part in this Santa Maria Elks Rodeo, and then we're off again to Utah, Washington State, wherever the next rodeos are going to be. And one of the most fun competitors in the professional team roping was a guy named Bronk Bainline. Okay, now he won the team roping with his partner Chant DeForest, but Bronk Bainline is very busy during the rodeo, so he had to take a break from what he was doing to get on a horse and ride in the team roping. Now he rode in shorts, Hawaiian shirt, and clown makeup. You don't usually see that in team ropers. But when he got off the horse, then he had to get back over to the other side of the arena because he was one of the bullfighters. And he comes here every year as a bullfighter, and they're the guys that work with the rodeo clown. Now, the clown, of course, is the man in the can during the bullfighting, and he entertains the crowd during the whole performance. But Bainline is one of those guys that puts himself in harm's way so that when the bull riders are dumped in the dirt, and most of them are, he gets right in between the cowboy and the bull to make sure the cowboy can get out of the arena safely while he gets the bull's attention elsewhere so they can get him out of the arena safely too. So it was a whole lot of fun, and we're already making our plans for next year's because we decided that it was so much fun to go live. We're going to do it again. The rodeo people thought what we did was great things for the rodeo, and they've invited us back again. So Jason and Braxton and I are getting ready, dusting off our cowboy hats, and we'll be ready for next year's 74th annual rodeo when it rolls around again, once again, at the beginning of June. So that's probably a longer look at the rodeo, but there's so much that goes on there that, like I said, I could do a half an hour just on that, and we've already done 2 half hours, and you still can't tell all the stories that you find at the rodeo. So it was a great time, and you can look at the 2 30-minute shows, by the way. They are online right now, 2 special editions of 805 Sports Talk from the rodeo, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. You just click away. So enjoy those shows too while we wrap up this edition of 805 Sports Talk.
Thanks, Elliott. We're going to make our way back up to the lead story. Jacob, you talked about Lompoc softball, and you were so impressed with the run they made, and I think all of us were as well. Covering LPL softball as much as we have the last 5 or 6 years, it's always been pretty much been Cabrillo and Apomo at the top of that league. Neither of them have really been able to advance all the way to a championship game in the playoffs, but here comes Lompoc pretty much out of nowhere. McKenna Martin's 2nd year as coach, and they just hit the playoffs and just pretty much dominate, knocking off two private school powers, Louisville and St. Bonaventure, and if you know anything about Lompoc, they just kind of love knocking off those private schools. Andrew Jones and the Lompoc football team talks about that all the time. So to see the softball team kind of take that approach, knock off those you know, kind of prominent schools, you know, Ventura, Woodland Hills, that area was pretty impressive. And I'll be honest with you, I think it was, you know, they were like 10-0 in LPL at some point, and I was like, you know, I bet you they're probably not even going to hold on to win a league title, because they had to beat Cabrillo, I think, the last two games. They had to beat Napomo, I think, before that. So I wasn't even sure if Lompoc was going to hang on and win the league title. And here they go, make just an amazing run through the playoffs, win a CIF championship. It was just incredible to see.
And it's interesting you bring up winning LPL, because I thought they were visibly more nervous in the final 2 weeks of LPL competition than they were before any of the playoff games and during any of the playoff games, because they were playing kids who they knew. They were playing for something the school hadn't had for 12 years. And I think because it was league and because of that familiarity, you know, they had that 2-game stretch where they looked worse than they had the previous 2 months, really. And then CIF starts, and they played like they were the best team in D5. And what I think was fascinating is they beat St. Bonaventure 3-0, and they beat Louisville High by the same score. I thought they played even better against Louisville than they played against St. Bonaventure. By the way, Louisville's got a pitcher, Emma Dedamore, struck out 17 Cabrillo hitters and is going to Portland State next year. She's going to be getting out college hitters next year, and gave up 9 hits to Lompoc, which is not going to have any Division I hitters in college next year. So I mean, you guys have been covering softball for a long time in this area. This has to be one of the most unexpected and exciting runs anyone's seen.
It was. The 3-0 shutouts, that's what really impressed me, that they didn't allow these two powerhouses to score. You know, that's like shutting down LeBron James and those guys. Or, you know, you look at, you know, shutting out Joe's beloved Yankees. It's not easy to shut out these schools, and yeah, giving up 9 hits, but didn't do any damage. So that was one of the things that really impressed me. Not only the way the team came together, but the way they kept everybody from crossing the plate. They were just a defensive and pitching powerhouse themselves over those last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
No, I had thought for a little while that Olivia Gutierrez was a bit underrated as a pitcher. I had only seen her maybe a handful of times, but every time I saw her, I was impressed. And she really seemed to hit her stride during the playoffs. She's a very smart, savvy pitcher who has some power behind her pitches to boot. She was clicking, and that helped her defense click. When the pitcher is getting hitters to hit into routine outs, as she was, it helps the defense pick up the tempo, get into rhythm. She was clicking, the defense behind her was clicking, ergo 3 shutouts in their last 3 games.
And I just want to point out something I was guilty of, and I think a lot of other people were guilty of, was becoming enamored with Templeton's pitcher, Ashley Dougherty, because she's throwing 65 miles an hour as a high school freshman, which is the equivalent of 90s fastball in MLB. I think it's actually rarer and even more impressive to be an effective high school pitcher the way Olivia was, because Olivia knows how to pitch to contact without it being a smash hit, and giving her really good defense a chance to do good work. The fact that Olivia and her coaching staff know how to pitch that way, I thought was equally, if not more impressive than what Dougherty is able to do. But yeah, it's just a remarkable story, and I echo what Elliott said about being able to talk about rodeo for 30 minutes. I could talk about Lompoc softball's run for 30 minutes or more, but there were a lot of other stories around that we could talk about.
Yeah, I think that with Lompoc softball, that's why we wait till the end of all teams are done playing to make our all-area picks, because we like to see, you know, a playoff run like that, and it impacts who we pick for our all-area, you know, MVPs or, you know, pitchers or whatever. All the league stuff comes out when the league is done, but we like to wait till the end of the playoffs to see who we think are the most valuable players for the team. And I'm expecting Lompoc's playoff run will probably impact who we pick as our MVP or, you know, Coach of the Year and all that stuff. So that's kind of why we always wait till the end of the year.
I've always thought the playoffs should have an impact on our all-area picks. That's when the most clutch games are, and some of the most clutch players tend to show up during the best time. Olivia Gutierrez did, Matt Sauer did. He had 2 shutouts in his 2 starts during Rigetti's playoff run. They came in 4th in the Pac-8, had the best playoff run of any Pac-8 baseball team. They made it to the quarterfinals. So some outstanding players had outstanding runs at the most important time.
And on top of that, San Ynez comes this close, you know, to ousting the #1 seed in D5 baseball.
Oh, that was heartbreaking.
And
that was
team,
wrenching.
And that team goes on to win Division 5, Woodcrest Christian. So playoffs. I mean, there's the famous playoffs segment, but you can also say playoffs. I mean, what can you do? I mean, it changes from game to game. Anything's possible.
Just the unpredictability adds spice to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
San Ynez was up 4-0 in the 7th inning against Woodcrest Christian, and Kenny was at that game. I'm sure you don't want to relive it, but yeah, that's
Woodcrest Christian
the
tied
volatile nature.
steal of home.
Neither do the Pirates.
Yes.
Yeah, I was. the reverse of the Lompoc happiness was that game.
All right, thanks for tuning in to another edition of 805 Sports Talk. I know you probably haven't had enough of us and Elliott over the last couple weeks with the show, but this is our last one for this school year. It's been a lot of fun. This is our 11th edition. I know, Elliott, you've had your hands full with the 805 Sports Talk this last week. So thank you guys for tuning in, and catch us next week. We will be doing a show next week. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook as well in the meantime.
And of course, click on those rodeo shows that are online, and check out your daily Santa Maria Times in print, where we'll still keep you up to date on all the latest sports action right here on the Central Coast. Little League and Babe Ruth playoffs are underway. We'll be keeping you up to date every morning in your Santa Maria Times. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time on 805 Sports Talk.